Ladies and gentlemen, friendships are some of the most powerful relationships in our lives. They shape us, influence our decisions, and provide companionship and support through life's journey. But as much as we desire to maintain these connections, there are times when God leads us to a difficult decision to end a friendship that no longer aligns with His will or purpose for our lives. It's not a decision we make lightly, but rather one we approach with prayer, discernment, and obedience. The first sign that God may be leading you to end a friendship is the shift in peace and comfort you begin to feel. When you are in relationships that are ordained by God, there is a deep sense of peace, joy, and fulfillment. But when a friendship starts to become a source of unrest, discomfort, or tension, it may be a sign that God is moving you in a different direction. This discomfort is not a small feeling, it often permeates your soul. And you start to notice that spending time with this person no longer brings you the peace it once did. God gives us an inner peace that guides us, and when this peace is disrupted, it is essential that we pay attention. It is not a matter of personal conflict, but of divine guidance showing us that it's time to let go. Second, when a friendship hinders your growth, it is a clear sign that it is no longer serving God's purpose in your life. God has called us to grow, to evolve, and to move forward into the fullness of who He created us to be. Through relationships, especially friendships, should contribute to that growth. They should push us to be better, to fulfill our purpose, and to become more aligned with God's will. But when a friendship begins to divert your focus, pull you away from your spiritual path, or limit your potential, it's a sign that the relationship is no longer in alignment with God's plan for you. Friendships that hold us back, that encourage us to compromise our values, or that keep us stagnant, no longer have a place in the purpose-filled life God intends for us. The third sign is an increase in conflict and unresolved tension. Every friendship will experience moments of disagreement, but when conflict becomes the dominant feature of the relationship, when every conversation feels like a battle or every interaction leaves you emotionally drained, it's a clear indication that something is amiss. God does not want us to stay in relationships where there is constant turmoil. Healthy relationships allow space for growth, resolution, and understanding, even in moments of conflict. If you find yourself in a relationship where conflicts are recurring and unresolved, where the air is thick with unspoken tension, it may be time to step back. God is not calling us into relationships that cause us constant stress or pain. He is calling us into relationships that build us up and help us grow in love, patience, and wisdom. Sometimes God speaks to us through silence. If you've been praying earnestly about a friendship and find that God is silent, it could be His way of showing you that the relationship is not in His will. God's silence is not a sign of indifference, but a sign that He is guiding you to make a decision. In these moments, it is crucial to listen closely and trust that God's silence is a form of direction. He is showing you that the time has come to let go and trust in His greater plan. In the silence, we are called to step out in faith, knowing that God's guidance is always for our good, even when it leads us to difficult decisions. Finally, when you realize that you and your friend are no longer aligned in purpose or values, it's time to acknowledge that the relationship has run its course. As you grow in your relationship with God, you may find that your life's vision, values, and priorities begin to shift. Friendships that once seemed like a perfect fit may no longer align with the person you are becoming. God's purpose for your life is unique, and as you continue to pursue that purpose, your circle of friends will change. People come into our lives for different seasons and different reasons, and sometimes when those seasons change, it's time to let go of relationships that no longer serve the divine purpose you're walking in. God leads us with love, with wisdom, and with a clear sense of purpose. If you are feeling that it's time to end a friendship, Trust that this is part of God's plan to protect you and move you closer to your divine destiny. It is not easy, but it is necessary. Remember, God is always with you, guiding you toward the relationships that will help you grow, flourish, and walk in the fullness of your calling. Trust in His timing, trust in His wisdom, and know that He will lead you into the right relationships for your journey. A shift in peace and comfort is one of the most profound signs that God may be leading you to end a friendship. Peace is not just a fleeting feeling, it is a deep assurance within your soul that everything is right in alignment with God's will. True peace is a gift from God, a gift that transcends understanding and anchors us even in the midst of life's challenges. When you're in relationships that are ordained by God, you will experience a sense of inner peace, an assurance that this connection is part of His divine plan. But what happens when that peace begins to fade, or when you feel an overwhelming sense of discomfort whenever you are with that person? When God begins to shift your peace, it is often a call to pay attention, to listen to your spirit and recognize that something is changing. The discomfort may not be immediate or overt, but over time, you begin to sense that something is off. The conversations no longer flow naturally. The connection feels forced, perhaps even draining. It's as if every interaction requires more effort than it once did, and rather than lifting your spirit, it weighs you down. You might find yourself avoiding the person, feeling relieved when you're not around them, or struggling to find joy in the moments you shared together. These feelings are not coincidental. They are God's way of saying it's time for you to pause, reflect, and evaluate what this relationship is doing to your peace. This shift can feel unsettling because peace is the foundation of our relationship with God. It is the confirmation that we are in His will. So when peace begins to shift, we are faced with a question: is this relationship still in alignment with the life God is calling me to live? If you find that your peace begins to diminish every time you are around this person, it's a sign that this friendship may no longer be fulfilling its intended purpose. It may have served a role in your life in a past season, but now in the present, it may be creating discord between you and the path God is leading you toward. Discomfort often arises in relationships when we are being pulled in different directions, when our values, priorities, or visions for the future are no longer aligned. The moment you feel that deep, unsettling discomfort within you, it's essential to stop and ask yourself, is this relationship helping me move closer to God's will for my life, or is it pulling me away from it? We are not meant to walk through life weighed down by relationships that cause us stress, anxiety, or confusion. God's peace is meant to guide us, to help us make decisions with clarity and confidence. When the peace begins to fade, it's time to seek God's wisdom, to ask Him if He is gently closing the door to that relationship, leading you into a new season of growth. Sometimes the absence of peace is more telling than its presence. When the peace of God is no longer with you in a relationship, you may find yourself wrestling with your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. There is an uneasiness that makes it hard to relax, to be yourself, or to fully engage in the relationship. This isn't to say that every challenge in a friendship is a reason to walk away. Challenges are part of any relationship. But when challenges consistently rob you of your peace, when the relationship feels like a burden instead of a blessing, it is God's way of showing you that it's time to step back. Peace comes from God, and it is meant to be a guide in our lives. When God starts to withdraw His peace from a relationship, it is His way of leading us towards something better. It is an invitation to step into a new chapter, to allow ourselves to grow beyond what this friendship has been, and to trust that God's plan for our lives is unfolding in ways that are beyond our understanding. His peace is always a sign of His presence, and when that peace shifts, it is an opportunity for us to pause, pray, and listen to what He is saying. It is an invitation to let go of what no longer serves us and to step into a season where peace reigns in every relationship we hold. When peace shifts, it's not a sign of God abandoning us, it's a sign of His love and guidance. He does not want us to remain in relationships that hinder our growth, our purpose, or our spiritual journey. He desires for us to experience peace in every aspect of our lives. And if a friendship is causing you to lose that peace, it is an invitation to release it. Trust God's direction and allow Him to lead you to relationships that align with His perfect will for your life. So when you feel the shift, don't be afraid to acknowledge it. Lean into the discomfort, pray for wisdom, and trust that God is guiding you toward the peace that He has already promised you. There comes a time in every person's life when they must evaluate the relationships they keep. Friendships are meant to be a source of support, encouragement, and growth. They should help us rise, sharpen our character, and keep us aligned with our purpose. However, there are moments when a friendship, once a beautiful connection, becomes a hindrance to our growth. This is a powerful and often difficult realization, but it's important to understand that God's plan for us is always to progress, to move forward into the fullness of who He created us to be. When a relationship is preventing that forward motion, it is essential to recognize that it may no longer be serving God's will for your life. A friendship that hinders your growth is not always one that causes overt problems or conflict. Sometimes it is the subtle, unseen ways that a relationship can stall your progress. Maybe you find that you no longer feel inspired to pursue your dreams, or you notice a constant sense of complacency when you're around this person. Their presence in your life may feel comfortable, but deep down you begin to sense that it keeps you stagnant. You start to notice that your passions are dimming, your focus is being diverted, and your spiritual walk is losing its fervor. Instead of encouraging you to keep moving forward, this relationship makes it easier to settle for less than what God has planned for you. True friendships challenge us to become better versions of ourselves, to step into our calling, and to hold us accountable to the person we are meant to be. But when a friendship pulls you away from that growth, it becomes a stumbling block. You might begin to feel as if you're walking in circles, repeating the same patterns, or getting caught in distractions that don't align with your true purpose. God does not want you to be stuck. He has called you to break free from complacency and to walk boldly into the future He has prepared for you. A friendship that does not encourage that movement forward is not serving His plan for your life. The question then becomes, how do we know when a friendship has crossed that line, when it has transitioned from a healthy, life-giving connection to something that pulls us down rather than lifts us up? It happens when you stop feeling motivated to pursue your calling. When you begin to settle for less than your potential, when you begin to doubt your ability to do what God has placed in your heart, you must ask yourself, is this friendship encouraging me to move forward? Is this relationship helping me build the strength and resilience to fulfill my purpose, or is it keeping me comfortable in a place of stagnation? You see, God has a purpose for each of us, and it is a purpose that is always forward moving. We are called to grow, to expand, and to push beyond the limitations that we see around us. When we are in relationships that hold us back from that purpose, relationships that make it difficult to see our true potential, or that keep us trapped in old ways of thinking or behaving, we must have the courage to reassess. God calls us to surround ourselves with people who will encourage our growth, challenge our thinking, and stand with us as we pursue the destiny He has for us. There is no shame in recognizing that a friendship has become a hindrance to your growth. It is not a sign of failure, but rather a sign of wisdom and discernment. Understanding that you need to step back from a friendship that no longer aligns with your purpose is a sign that you are maturing in your relationship with God. He wants you to keep moving forward, to break free from anything or anyone that would try to keep you stuck. A friendship that hinders your growth is not a reflection of who you are, but rather an indication that this season of connection has come to an end. God's will for your life is always aligned with your growth. He desires for you to flourish in every area spiritually, emotionally, and physically. When a relationship no longer promotes that growth, it is an opportunity for you to step into a new chapter, one that will bring you closer to who He has created you to be. So trust God's guidance. When He reveals that a friendship is hindering your growth, trust that He is preparing something greater for you, something that will align with His purpose for your life and bring you into a place of fulfillment and strength. Let go of the relationships that hold you back and trust that God will bring into your life those who will encourage your journey and walk with you toward the destiny He has prepared. Growth is never easy, but it is always worth it. In every relationship, conflict is inevitable. It's part of life, part of the human experience. People are different, and differing opinions, personalities, and temperaments will always create opportunities for disagreement. But the key is how conflict is handled, how it is resolved, and how it shapes the relationship. A friendship that is rooted in mutual understanding, respect, and love can weather storms of disagreement and still emerge stronger, deeper, and more connected. Conflict becomes a problem, however, when it begins to dominate the relationship, when unresolved tension lingers, festers, and ultimately erodes the connection you once had. One of the most powerful signs that God is leading you to end a friendship is when you find that the relationship is marked by constant conflict, where resolution seems impossible. It's not that you don't try to work things out. It's not that there aren't moments of effort or attempts to communicate. The problem lies in the recurring nature of the conflict. No matter how many times you try to resolve it, no matter how many apologies are offered or compromises are made, the tension never truly dissipates. Instead, it only grows, and you begin to feel like you're walking on eggshells, afraid that another argument could erupt at any moment. This is a sign that the relationship is no longer serving its purpose, at least not in the way God intended. God desires peace in our relationships. He desires unity, reconciliation, and healing. When we find ourselves in a place where there is constant fighting, where old wounds never seem to heal, where conversations spiral into more disagreement rather than understanding, it is often a sign that the relationship is not in alignment with God's will for this season of our lives. God doesn't lead us into relationships filled with perpetual strife where peace seems unattainable. Yes, He allows for growth through challenges, but He does not want us to live in a constant state of conflict where every interaction becomes a battlefield and every conversation leaves us drained. There is a difference between working through challenges together and being stuck in a cycle of never-ending tension. Healthy relationships require effort, and it's natural to have disagreements and differences. But when those disagreements no longer lead to growth or mutual understanding, when they begin to create division rather than resolution, then it's time to recognize that God may be showing you that it's time to step away. He doesn't want us to remain in relationships where we are continually hurt and misunderstood, or where our emotional and spiritual well-being is compromised by constant tension. Unresolved tension can manifest in many ways. Sometimes it's subtle, lingering beneath the surface, creating an unspoken distance between two people. You may feel that something is off, but you're not sure what it is. You may start to avoid certain topics, avoid spending time together, or even find yourself making excuses to not engage. Other times, it's more obvious. Arguments escalate quickly, words are said that can't be taken back, and you both walk away feeling more distant than ever before. In either case, this ongoing conflict and unresolved tension is a warning sign. It's a signal that God is trying to protect you from further harm, from being trapped in a relationship that is no longer serving your growth, your peace, or your purpose. When tension remains unresolved, it begins to create a wall between two people, making it harder to communicate, harder to trust, and harder to connect. The longer that tension persists, the more difficult it becomes to find common ground. The emotional wounds deepen, and the relationship begins to feel more like an obligation than a partnership. You may begin to feel that no matter what you do, no matter how much you try to fix things, you can't seem to break the cycle of unresolved conflict. It's in these moments that God may be leading you to a place where you realize that some relationships, no matter how much effort you put in, are not meant to continue. God desires peace, and He wants us to experience relationships that contribute to our growth, our healing, and our overall well-being. When conflict becomes the norm and tension remains unresolved, it is an invitation from God to look inward and ask for clarity. Is this relationship truly serving the purpose He has for me? Is it helping me become who He wants me to be? If not, it may be time to trust that God is guiding you toward a different path, one that will bring peace, restoration, and alignment with His will for your life. When God leads you to recognize that the tension and conflict in a relationship are no longer serving His purpose, it is not a rejection of the person, but an opportunity to seek a new direction for both your lives. Sometimes relationships are meant to come to an end, not because of malice or failure, but because the purpose for them has been fulfilled, or because God has something greater in store for both individuals involved. Recognizing the need to end a friendship marked by constant conflict is an act of courage, an act of obedience, and an act of trusting God's plan for your life. So when you find yourself in a relationship that is filled with unresolved tension, when every conversation feels like a struggle and every moment together is filled with conflict, remember that God's peace is available to you. He is a God of reconciliation, and He desires for you to live in harmony with others. Trust in His guidance and understand that sometimes walking away is the healthiest choice. It may be difficult, but trust that God will lead you to the relationships that will bring you the peace, growth, and understanding that you are called to experience. Sometimes one of the most powerful ways God speaks to us is through silence. It's a profound form of communication that requires us to pause, listen, and discern what He is saying. In moments when we feel a sense of confusion or uncertainty about a friendship, we may find ourselves turning to God in prayer, seeking clarity, seeking guidance. And yet there are times when, despite our earnest pleas, God's response is nothing but silence. This silence can be unsettling, but it is never meaningless. It is, in fact, a divine answer in and of itself. When God is silent, especially in regard to a friendship, it's not a sign of abandonment or disinterest. God never abandons us. His silence is not a punishment or a sign that He is distant. Rather, it is a signal that He is leading us to make a decision. Sometimes we need to come to a place where we are willing to trust His leading without the immediate clear-cut answer we are seeking. Silence from God is an invitation to step out in faith. He may be asking us to make a move, to trust that He has already provided all the wisdom we need and that His will be made clear in time, even if the clarity isn't immediate. This divine silence teaches us to move away from the mindset of expecting everything to be laid out in front of us in black and white terms. We are so accustomed to instant answers, quick resolutions, and immediate gratification. But God's ways are higher than ours, and His timing is perfect. There are moments when God's silence allows us the opportunity to lean into our faith, to rely on the strength He has placed within us, and to recognize that His presence is not always in the spoken word, but often in the quiet moments that require us to trust Him more deeply. In these times, we must learn to discern the stillness as His way of guiding us to a deeper understanding of our own hearts and His purpose for us. God's silence is not a void, but a sacred space where He is inviting you to trust Him on a deeper level. It is in that silence that we are given the opportunity to listen not only with our ears, but with our hearts, discerning His will through the quiet whispers of the Holy Spirit. While it may feel uncomfortable or unsettling at times, this silence is an invitation to step into a new level of faith and trust in God's divine timing and wisdom. When you find yourself in this space, remember that God is never absent. He is always present, guiding you through His silence to make decisions that align with His greater plan for your life. Trust that in His silence, He is leading you toward freedom, growth, and relationships that will empower you to fulfill your purpose. Embrace the silence, for it is in that stillness that God often speaks the clearest. Thank you.